Welcome, everyone, and thank you for being here. My name is Steve Koleno, and these are confidential remarks designed to help modern real estate professionals understand where the industry is heading next. This presentation is really about one big idea. The real estate business is changing fast, and the agents who survive will not be the loudest salespeople. They will be the clearest advisors. For years, agents were trained to guard information. They controlled access to listings, pricing data, and market knowledge. But today, consumers already have access to most of that information on their phones in seconds. So the question becomes, if the client already has the data, where does the advisor create value? That's what this presentation is about. It's about shifting from being a gatekeeper to becoming a guide. Instead of trying to control the process, the modern advisor helps people understand their choices, avoid mistakes, and make smarter decisions. The future belongs to professionals who educate clearly, communicate honestly, and build trust through transparency. This explains one of the biggest shifts happening in real estate right now. In the past, agents were like gatekeepers. If someone wanted market data, listings, pricing history, or neighborhood information, they had to go through an agent to get it. But today, consumers already have access to most of that information online. Zillow, Redfin, YouTube, AI tools, and social media have changed everything. So the advisor who still tries to guard the wall is fighting a battle that's already over. The real opportunity now is not protecting information. It's helping people filter through the chaos. Think about it this way. Imagine trying to drink water from a fire hose. That's how many consumers feel today. There's too much information, too many opinions, and too much noise. The modern advisor becomes the filter. The advisor brings clarity. They help clients understand what matters, what doesn't, and what decisions make the most sense for their goals. That's a completely different role than the old school salesperson. This slide compares two completely different ways of thinking about the business. On the left side is the old school salesperson model. This model depends heavily on chasing leads, memorizing scripts, overcoming objections, and defending commissions. The problem is that this creates pressure. Clients can feel when someone is trying to close them instead of helping them. On the right side is the advisor model. The advisor acts more like a guide than a salesperson. Instead of trying to push a transaction, the advisor helps the client understand options, risks, trade-offs, and strategy. That changes everything. The advisor is no longer judged by how aggressive they are. They're judged by how clearly they think, how well they communicate, and how much trust they create. And honestly, most consumers prefer this approach because nobody likes feeling pressured. People want to feel informed, respected, and in control. Sometimes the biggest transformation comes from changing just a few words. Look at the examples on this slide. Instead of saying, "I'll sell your home," the advisor says, "I'll show you your options." Instead of saying, "I'll get you top dollar," they explain the trade-offs involved in pricing strategy. And instead of defending their commission, they explain how they help protect the client's equity and decision-making process. Why does this matter? Because language changes psychology. When clients feel like they're being sold, they become defensive. But when clients feel educated and empowered, trust starts to grow. The advisor's job is not to pressure people into decisions. The advisor's job is to create clarity so the client can make confident decisions for themselves. That shift completely changes the energy of the relationship. One of the biggest pain points in real estate is commission conversations. Traditionally, agents often became defensive when fees were questioned. But defensiveness creates tension, and tension destroys trust. Transparency solves that problem. When advisors openly explain pricing, options, service levels, and trade-offs, the conversation becomes calmer and more collaborative. Think about it like going to a restaurant. If the menu is clear, you feel comfortable choosing what works for you. But if prices are hidden, you immediately feel suspicious. Consumers want clarity. They want to understand what they're paying for and why it matters. The more transparent the advisor becomes, the less emotional resistance exists in the conversation. Transparency doesn't weaken authority. It strengthens it. Not every consumer wants the same experience anymore. Some people want full control. Others want guidance. And some want someone to handle everything for them. That's what this slide is showing. The industry is moving toward flexible service models instead of one-size-fits-all solutions. Think about how people use technology today. Some people book travel entirely on their own. Others use travel advisors. Both options can work. Real estate is evolving the same way. The advisor of the future wins by offering choices instead of forcing everyone into the exact same process. Consumers value flexibility. They value customization. And they value having control over how involved they want to be. This introduces a simple framework that makes modern real estate services easier to understand. There are three main paths. The first is DIY, or do-it-yourself. This is for consumers who mainly want access, tools, and cost savings. The second is DWI, or done with you. This is the advisory model. The client stays involved, but they receive expert strategy and guidance along the way. And the third is DFY, or done for you. This is the premium full-service experience where the advisor manages nearly everything. What's important here is that the client chooses the level of support they want. The advisor is no longer forcing one service model onto everyone. Instead, they're helping consumers select the experience that best fits their goals, budget, and personality. This highlights a major business problem inside the industry. Most agents operate on a single income stream, commissions. That means every month starts over from zero. Find a lead, chase the lead, close the lead, repeat. That cycle creates stress, unpredictability, and financial instability. But diversified businesses are stronger businesses. When advisors build multiple income streams, including fees, advisory services, and revenue sharing, the business becomes more resilient. Think about a table with one leg versus a table with three legs. Which one is more stable? The same principle applies here. The goal is not just making money today. The goal is building a business that can survive market shifts, industry changes, and economic uncertainty. This breaks the business into three income categories. The first is fees. These are predictable earnings tied to knowledge, access, and advisory services. The second is commissions, which remain important for successful transactions. And the third is revenue sharing, which comes from helping grow systems, teams, and organizations. Together, these three pillars create balance. Instead of relying entirely on unpredictable closings, the advisor creates multiple ways to generate value and income. That makes the business less fragile and more scalable over time. This shows how the business model evolves over time. At the beginning of a career, the focus may be small fees, consultations, and referrals. As experience grows, advisors move into hybrid services, premium consulting, and transaction management. Eventually, experienced professionals can build teams, systems, mentorship programs, and scalable revenue streams. The important idea here is that the advisor is building assets, not just chasing transactions. That's a much more sustainable long-term strategy. Instead of constantly restarting every month, the advisor builds systems that continue producing value over time. This may be one of the most important in the entire presentation. Great advisors don't start by pitching services. They start by diagnosing goals. Every client is different. Some care most about speed. Others care about privacy, certainty, convenience, or maximum profit. The advisor's first responsibility is understanding what actually matters to the client. Only after that should they explain the available paths and strategies. This approach changes the relationship completely. Instead of trying to force people into one system, the advisor customizes the solution around the client's priorities. That's what trusted professionals do in every industry. This explains how momentum starts to build. Transparent communication builds trust. Trust increases consumer confidence. Confidence leads to more transactions, referrals, and long-term relationships. Those stronger relationships create more stability, more recurring business, and more opportunities to grow. Over time, the advisor is no longer stuck in survival mode. Instead of constantly chasing business, the business starts compounding through reputation, systems, and trust. That's the power of the flywheel effect. Small improvements repeated consistently create massive long-term advantages. This brings everything together. The future of real estate does not belong to the most aggressive salesperson. It belongs to the clearest advisor. Consumers are changing. Technology is changing. Expectations are changing. And the professionals who adapt will win. The winning advisors will educate instead of pressure. They will guide instead of control. They will simplify instead of confuse. Most importantly, they will build trust through transparency, clarity, and genuine expertise. That is the modern advisor model. And that is the opportunity sitting in front of this industry right now. This has been Confidential Remarks.